What's going on, everyone? It's Dan with The Bottom Line, and today we are going to discuss a TEM solution that we recently did for a client and kind of show you the nuts and bolts of what we've been able to achieve for our clients. And I should start by saying, with any cost-saving venture, there's always a bit of skepticism, and that's something that we always welcome, because if someone's a skeptic, that means that there's an opportunity for us to show them the way. And so this is a long-standing client of ours, long member of the 40/60 Club. We'll talk about that later. And we were just trying to thank them for all their years of service by offering them TEM solution. And so in their mind, like many clients, there was nothing that they were going to be able to save. And that's sort of the status quo. Most people think there's nothing you're going to be able to do. And I said, okay, well then you have nothing to lose, right? And so we were able to go in and start to do our process. And I believe that's where we were able to bring the value, as we often do. And so that always starts with an LOA. An LOA, or letter of authorization, letter of authority, gives us at the Bottom Line Consulting the opportunity to go to your vendors directly and get all that information. Okay, when you're an end-to-end provider like we are, we're not trying to create any additional work or frustration, bottlenecks, friction, truly frictionless process. So how do we do that? We get the LOA, we submit it to the vendor, and then at that point we're able to ask for everything: contracts, invoices, anything that doesn't include paying for things or increasing or monetizing additional services. And so we did that, and we got to work. And mind you, they didn't realize what we were about to uncover. And what was uncovered is that they had 91 numbers still paying for over a decade that they were unaware of. And you guys may be shocked, but there's many organizations out there that face the same issues, because when you're running lean, you don't have the opportunity to kind of really be meticulous and get really granular in your AP and AR. And so these folks are just paying your bill, paying your bill, paying your bill. And so at this point, that bill was running $4,927.19 a month and was just about to face an additional escalator. The good news is that it was month to month, so we were able to get in there and start hacking immediately. So how did that look? Of the 91 numbers, 59 we were able to cancel immediately. 16 we were getting ported over to eFax. 7 of the 91 were either elevator or fire lines, which, if you know anything about them, you need to have them. And not having them, you face tremendous consequences and huge financial burden from your local municipalities. And 9 that we ended up just canceling. So truthfully, of all the numbers, 68 cancellations, 16 ports to their eFax provider, okay? And then 7 that we have as plain old telephone lines. Now, if you know anything about POTS lines, they're starting to phase them out, right? Copper is hard to maintain, it's really expensive to support, and so they're in a huge decommissioning. Okay, we'll put a link to the bottom to the FTC or FCC and what they're doing about that. But there's plenty of alternatives for POTS in a box, especially for your elevator and fire line. The thing is, that's dependent upon your local municipalities and what they allow to happen. Okay, the thing about copper is, in the event of issues, they want them to be able to work, right? So fire, storm, anything like that. So they have POTS in a box with battery backups that allow for them to work. But again, just know that if things do go wrong, there is potential for scrutiny and certainly financial fines. So of the $4,927.19, we've essentially brought that bill to zero, guys. And all because they didn't know they were spending the money. And it took someone who they trusted to come in, take a look at that, and find out. So how were we able to do it? Well, our Telecom Expense Management process is no different than many others out there. We're going to get a list of the numbers after that LOA, and we're going to dial. And now we have a software within our CRM that can make those dials. But what are we looking for is immediate dial tone not connecting. We're looking for an out of office. We're looking for, this number is not valid. If it just continues to ring, if you're looking for, a dial tone that you might receive. So these are all different ways that you're able to really understand if someone's, on the other side of the line. So one of the things we had done preemptively is we said, hey, send something out to all the folks in the organization that they'll be calling. And if you pick up, I'll just say, hey, it's Dan, we're doing a TEM solution. So in all those 91 dials, which we did multiple times over the course of 2 days, not one answer, okay? And so that was kind of the canary in the coal mine. It let us know that there were some issues. And from that, we took our end result, right, our deliverable, we brought it to the client just to validate. So in just looking at it, I think it was over an hour, they said, hey, Dan, you're right. Where are these numbers? Because they have a full-on UCaaS solution that they're operating in parallel to this, but they just didn't know about it. So of these lines, I would say that about 90% of them on the billing hadn't had any usage in over a year. Now, we talk about misalignment a lot of times within companies, right? Someone was on the other end of that bill getting a spiff, a percentage. And if you're not doing the right thing, these types of things creep up and create angst. Now, the client came to us and they said, well, Dan, why didn't anyone tell us? And we had to have these hard truth conversations. In reality, it is not the responsibility of a company to say, hey, you have services that you're not using, okay? On the other hand, if you're gonna be consultative and you're gonna be someone that could be a trusted advisor to the clients, if you're not utilizing these lines, you have to. But again, anytime money is coming into the situation, it kind of muddies the waters. And so again, $4,927.19 pretty much whittled down to zero on that bill. Now granted, some of those ported lines were offered EFAX, right? So EFAX is gonna have its own bill in and of itself, and the elevators and fire lines that could potentially be transferred over to pots in a box with battery backup, those will be probably on par, if not save a little bit of money, but give them a little bit more reliance and get them away from those copper lines. So I'm going to put a case study at the bottom. I mentioned the 40/60 Club. The 40/60 Club is the bottom line's way of saying how we do our performance-based consulting. 40% of the savings comes to us over a term, minimum 3 years, and 60% stays with the client. Client's happy, minimal lift, okay guys? That's the point. You're not gonna have to do the work. We're handling everything. You're just doing the validation, and then even the cancellation was done by us. Because we sent that LOA, it gave us the opportunity to cancel lines for them. And so it was simply, hey, these are the lines, could you do me a favor and send them out? And certainly, all they had to do was pay not an early termination fee, but for every line within a certain segment, right? So every location, there was like a $7 fee and then $1.95 for each particular phone number. So at the end of the day, every year they're saving about 60 grand. And this is a bill that they're going to continue to pay because you just get caught in that cycle. If it's a bill that you see, yeah, you just pay it, you just pay it. And so that's what the bottom line really shows their strength, is because we're able to kind of go in there unbiased, say, hey, are you using this? And this is spilled over for this client in many different facets. We've looked at their translation, transcription. We've looked at, obviously, their telephone lines. We're recently working on an ISP situation. They spend quite a bit of money. Their printers and copiers, we've saved them over $1 million. And, anytime they have a project, we willingly try to help them because they've been really good to us. So again, the 40/60 Club, we keep 40, you keep 60, reinvest that into your company, give people raises, work for your mission, whatever it is. It's not for us to decide, and we stay alongside you. Another thing to realize is that we are huge on the OpEx. There's a lot of consultants out there that are heavy on the forefront. They want, consulting fees. Now we'll have a fee for our audit, but that gets rolled into the savings portion anyway. And that's more for our bandwidth purposes. But again, if you're looking for anything, we'll put some links at the bottom. We're gonna make a case study on this so you can see it visually. But yeah, $60,000 back into their pocket for essentially perpetuity because they weren't using these lines. And this is the kind of stories that allows us to go in and then start talking about other sectors and segments within their business. Have a great day, and just know if you're looking to save money, call us, the bottom line. And that's the bottom line.